I love traditions, and last year we started a tradition with Kevin Conroy and myself. I think we did maybe 4 or 5 high fives last year. So we're trying to get some energy into this industry, and you high five because we have a lot to celebrate. So I'm doing an intro to an intro, and so I would like to now introduce Kevin Conroy, CEO of Exact Sciences. Come on.
Lisa really deserves multiple high fives because she has re-energized BioForward and is working for all of us to make a big difference in Wisconsin, supporting companies that really are disruptors. And just to name a few, I'd like to highlight Blue Diagnostics, a company that is really revolutionizing fertility testing with a very simple saliva-based test, and Links Biosciences, which is focused on changing the way that blood cancers are diagnosed and treated. And Floracy, which is using the human microbiome to treat C. difficile, a significant problem in the US and globally. Tide Diagnostics, a revolutionary way to test for heart transplant rejections. Nordic Consulting, a larger company which now has almost 800 employees. And Redox, a revolutionary IT company that is helping electronic health records talk to each other. These are examples of what's going on in Wisconsin, and these companies are making a big difference in people's lives, and also making a big difference in the Wisconsin economy. At BioForward and its members believe very strongly that we have an ecosystem here that can help propel the Wisconsin economy forward while making a difference in healthcare. And we have this amazing asset in the University of Wisconsin, UW Health and Wharf. We think that they can step up and play a greater role through collaboration by helping disruptors achieve the goal of bringing innovative new technologies and services to patients. In doing so, what you see is that with these types of jobs, STEM jobs, over the last 30 plus years, you've seen inflation-adjusted income grow by over 60% compared to the rest of the economy, which is 17%. These are the jobs that really matter to this region, to Wisconsin overall. And if you take a look at what the BioForward industry as a whole, the average sector paid $90,000 per employee. That's significant. So we are doing great things for patients, and we're doing great things for the economy, but there's a lot more that we can do. And what you're going to hear from people who are disruptors. The first disruptor I'd like to introduce is Randy Spaulding. Randy.
Hi, my name's Randy Spaulding. I'm founder of Spaulding Clinical Research in West Bend. We started in 2009 as a 48-bed Phase 1 clinical research unit. Our claim to fame at the time was we were doing maybe what we now call convergence when convergence wasn't as cool. We were taking engineering and IT and clinical and bringing them together to create the first paperless automated clinical trial Phase 1 unit. So we automated the data collection. We created a single pure e-source of data where in the past there were quality issues because they would have to manually enter the data, they would write it down, then transcribe it into one computer, then put it in another, and then ends up in another, and the data gets corrupted along the way. So we created the first completely automated, paperless Phase 1 clinical research unit. From that, we further innovated. That was 2009. We also took some of my background is in medical devices, and my partner was a cardiologist, and so we took the data that we were collecting in real time, and in an automated fashion, we took it and we fed it into a cardiac safety data center as well, where we could collect all the cardiac data during the trial and have cardiologists live online and come in and immediately assess the cardiac safety for the patient, for the subject, and do their analysis in real time. And so that created a world where pharmaceutical companies could monitor the study completely remotely. My happiest moment was when someone told us they did it in their pajamas while they were on vacation in northern Wisconsin. They monitored one of our trials because they could see it all and using the technologies that we have available today. In 2011, we created our second business, which is we took that cardiac safety component and we moved it external into later stage clinical trials in a world where we had to ship big electrocardiograph units, heavy, expensive, complicated, and we used, you see a picture of it up there, but we created a very small portable electrocardiograph, 12-lead electrocardiograph for collecting data, cardiac safety data from patients as they participate in clinical trials globally. That was 2011. 2013, we added a whole bioanalytics group. During these trials, we collect terabytes of data, and somehow it has to get reduced to a single report for the FDA. So we created a bioanalytics group, statisticians and data programmers. And then finally, last year, we took our device and we decided to jump into the healthcare arena, the commercial side. And it is now available, particularly targeted for nursing homes who need a very simple, cost-effective way to take a 12-lead ECG on a patient who has chest pain, for example, and prevent those readmissions to hospitals. So that's us at Spaulding Clinical. Now we'll go next. Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tracy. I'm one of the co-founders and the Chief Technology Officer at Propeller Health. We actually celebrated a birthday this month, so it was about 6 years ago that my co-founder David Van Sickle was doing research on campus in digital health. And we had this crazy idea of taking small, tiny little wireless sensors and putting them on top of inhaled medications and tracking when and where people are using their meds. And we thought if we did that, we could actually go put that data to work and turn it around and help them sort of better understand their disease and help them self-manage and get better. I think at the time we had no real good sense of the disruption that we were creating in the digital health space. And I think what you've seen over the last 6 years as we've been building our solution as this has expanded beyond respiratory. Now, the one thing to know about respiratory is that despite this mountain of knowledge around asthma and COPD and this huge war chest of very effective medications, the overall burden of the disease is actually getting worse. So prevalence is worse. It's still about $100 billion in cost for the payers and the patients that have those two diseases. And we thought we could do better. And that's really the path that we set off on 6 years ago. Now, one thing to know about me is I'm a software geek. I love software, and I don't think there's ever been a better time to be a software geek. You have incredible access to compute resources, right? We have an office down here on Main Street, and from that office we can spin up clusters of machines and go throw data into them to solve very hard problems. Spin it back down when we wake up in the morning and spend a couple $100, right? There's an incredible array of access to open data. So you can get environmental data, like weather patterns and air quality and pollen data. You can buy Fitbits and spirometry devices, and all of those companies make that data accessible. And so while all of us are sleeping at night, we take those streams of data, including the signals that are coming off of these medications, and we shove it down into the machines, right? And magic happens. And our view here is that we think we can make that care experience between a patient and their physician very highly personalized. Because the truth is, in respiratory, there's actually a broad like continuum of care for most of those patients. And some of them are doing well most of the time. Some of them are doing poorly most of the time. And then people fit in between those. And so we think with the machines and with software, we can personalize their care just for them. And that's really the mission that we're on. We think that we can have a digitally guided therapy. And it's important, I think the one message I want to leave you with is that it's important that we don't just sort of thrust technology down onto patients, that these folks are already burdened with this disease. And I think it's presumptuous to think that you can throw an iPhone into their pocket or a sensor on their medication and magic sort of happens. It's really our job to take advantage of the systems, to take the burden away. And so you can't add new burdens. You have to find magic in the data and you have to find magic in their therapy. And we're off on this quest of doing digitally guided therapy. Taking the burden off of the care team and taking the burden off of the patient and helping them get better. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Dale Mittelstaedt, president of Red Arrow Labs. Bear with me, I'm fighting an early fall cold here today, so hopefully my voice holds up. But I'm very proud to be here this morning to share a little bit about Red Arrow Labs, what we do and how we do it. I'm glad that I brought my support staff with me, as part of my team, and colleagues from Open Life Science Services are here with me today, so shout out to you out there supporting me today. So what is it that we do that disrupts in the healthcare space at Red Arrow Labs? As we look at it, it's all about software, and we're committed totally, all of our time, talents, energies, and the technology to building a more effective, efficient, and easy-to-use health experience. We could use these same talents, these same time, energies, and the technology that surrounds us today to build the next video game, to build the next Pokemon Go, but we choose not to. We choose to disrupt. We choose to use those talents and disrupt the current models, the traditional models of care, to empower the patient, or as you heard earlier, the consumer of healthcare in this world. And I'll talk about some examples in a minute. A little bit about Red Arrow Labs. We're headquartered in the 3rd Ward community of Milwaukee, in the shadow of some great innovative manufacturers like Harley-Davidson and Rockwell Automation, but also just a few blocks away from where Frederick Doman opened up an apothecary 158 years ago and started the legacy of the Doman family of companies as innovators and entrepreneurs in life sciences and what that means. We were founded in 2009 as a technology company, and we joined the Doman family in 2014 as part of this legacy as we look forward. So how do we disrupt? What does disruption mean to us? At Red Arrow Labs, it's all about the software. It's about looking at how do we create software. It's about bridging the gap between the pharmaceutical manufacturer, the device manufacturer, and the consumer and patients that they serve, and building a tighter relationship there, but doing it with software. And again, if you walk around Red Arrow Labs, if you walk through our studio, our lab, if you will, the open concept, the traditional, shouldn't say traditional, the East Coast, West Coast traditional, of wide open collaborative space, unconventional cube, it's not about the development. It's not about the technology itself or writing code. It's really about how we look at it. How do we process this? And how do we put the user, how do we put the human at the center of software? That's really what is core, and that's how we look at it differently. Every mobile app we write, every line of business application we write that supports the operations of a pharma manufacturer or a medical device manufacturer starts with the user base. It starts with human-centered design. It's got to be about the human who is at the center of every transaction, of every communication, and everything you do. And so as you walk through our facility and you look at our teams, you'll see there's ideation going on with stakeholders. You'll see teams preparing to go out into the field and spend time with nurses, with home health care professionals, in the physician's office, and with patients themselves as they consume healthcare services. So we can learn, how does technology play in that? A couple examples of what we've done, excuse me. One area, we spend hours and hours with families who are caring for infants who have a rare heart disease. These parents, as you all know, those of you with families and with children, it's hard enough to care for an infant, let alone one that's suffering through a heart disease that needs many surgeries in the first portion of their life. We watch these caregivers, these patients, struggle with taking care of these children and writing down their biometrics, recording this information on the back of envelopes, on Post-it notes, any place they could, and then picking up the phone when they had a few minutes, calling the nurse station, and reporting what they've seen to make sure that their child was progressing appropriately, getting ready for the next surgery. So what we did is we grew out of that, listening to the patients, or to the caregivers, listening to the nurses who took the calls, and we built software. We built a mobile app that fit very well within the patients' and the parents' lives. It was part of who they were. It was part of what they did every day. A simple way to record biometrics, record that data very quickly, and then send it and get it right in the hands of the nurses right away. It also was able to set boundaries and to set limits so parents were warned if things were out of range, if they should be concerned, if it was a call or a run to the ER. So that's one way. You have to put the user at the center. Another thing we're doing is we're building software that really, again, bridges that gap between pharma manufacturer and patient. And that software is about the continuum of care, all of the constituents within that patient's care circle, and how do we get them engaged in that care protocol and build that relationship. So we think about it from white hand service, from the services patient gets, how do we get to them, where do we get to them, and how do they use software every day. So as Red Arrow looks at this, people say that we are disrupting in healthcare, and we don't think it's disrupting. We just think it's the right thing to do. Thanks.
From Milwaukee. I'm a little bit of an oddball here. I'm a heart rhythm specialist for the last 25 years. So I created this company. That's my full-time job. So I created this company over the weekends and in the evenings. And what you see here is the heart picture with 4 chambers. And about 10 million Americans are walking around with a heart rhythm problem. So what I was saying is about 10 million Americans are walking around with a heart rhythm problem, the most common being in the left upper chamber. And what you do in my field is, a lot of them, you take them to the laboratory, you put catheters in the heart, you try to map the electrical circuits where there is a problem, and then you do 3-dimensional mapping. And once you do that, you can cure many of those patients. So that's the easy part. The difficult part is that when you look at the whole world, only about 5% of the people have access to that type of technology. It's very expensive, about $500,000 to $800,000 to buy it, even in our hospital, one of the busiest hospitals in this country. We have systems, I've been working with them for 20 years, but it's not easy to buy that. And each time you use a catheter, it costs about $4,000 to $5,000. This whole emphasis is on cost and everything. So one of the things, what is a common denominator in every laboratory in the world is a fluoroscopy system. I work with GE Healthcare on many projects, and to be fair, it's a big company, beautiful company, but they were too slow for me. So I started my own company because of that. So I got that, one of the most important thing was to get the right type of team. We created a virtual company where people from Madison, I think Mark is somewhere here, where people from San Francisco, Boston, Milwaukee, India, and usually we meet on the weekends and the evenings, and that's how we created the software and essentially the hardware. If you look at an X-ray system, which is shown at the bottom, what happens is that the patient lies on the table, the X-rays go through the patient, and you see the image of the heart with the catheters on the screen. But it's a 2-dimensional image, and the heart is a 3-dimensional structure. So the idea is, how do you create a 3-dimensional image from 2-dimensional fluoroscopy? It was like almost like 4 years of mathematics and physics with all the people involved with artificial intelligence, image processing, and signal processing. So you have an X, Y in the fluoro system, but you don't have the Z, the depth. So that was the critical part that we had to solve. And over time, we were able to solve that. And once we had the X, Y, and Z, we were able to depict that on the system you see on the top. It's just basically a system, which is a computer. And then you can show the heart in 3 dimensions. The total cost to build this was about $13,000, and the average cost for a patient will be anywhere from $100 to $400 versus $4,500 going forward. But the most important thing is that everybody in this world who has a fluoroscopy system that you do have electrophysiology laboratory will have access to this. We just got FDA approval a few months ago, so I think that we're hopeful that in the next couple of years this technology will be available to most of the patients in this world, most of the hospitals, irrespective of which country they belong to. Thank you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Barbouche. I'm the founder and CEO of Forward Health Group. We are an analytics company based here in Madison. It's really cool back there. They have all these cool ropes and pulleys, and I've never been backstage before, theater or whatever. And it's pretty simple. They got these red handles, like you shouldn't touch them. I didn't, but you pull it, and I'm guessing this stuff goes up and it goes down. And it's very common sense oriented. It's like, I get it, and it's kind of cool. You can now envision when you're sitting out there how they make all this cool stuff happen. We need to get there in healthcare. Like, we're really far away from the pretty common sense weight, rope, pulley thing. The work that we do is around unbelievably basic measurements. We're a denominator company. We build denominators for a living, and then we overlay numerators on top of that. My wife is a primary care doc. She takes care of patients here in Madison. I don't know if I have a slide here. Figure that out. No, I don't have a slide. Okay. So she takes care of people like you and your parents and all the like. And we've made a lot of investments as a country, billions of dollars. We heard the great keynote today about value and all this other stuff. And we have electronic records and all these other things. And it's very difficult for your doctor to pull up a list of your information. It's very, very hard for a doctor to pull up a list of all of their patients and then see which patients have a gap in care or have a lapse in care, or what meds they're on, and the like. And that seems kind of straightforward because every other industry is data-driven and data-bound, but this one has tried to kind of not do that. And so the shift is here, and I love the keynote presentation. I think it was spot on about really moving away from this construct of volume and moving towards something of structure. What we do is we go harvest all that messy data. We bring in all the fragmented pieces, and there really are a lot of them, and then we try to clean them up. Our team came together and really to underscore kind of the event here, by Wisconsin, for Wisconsin. So in 2004, in healthcare, a long time ago, we measured for 3.1 million Wisconsinites at the level of the individual patient. Being married to the doc, I thought, well gosh, if I put up a website, which we did, that was kind of a new thing back then, and said, hey, you're 48.2 something, or your system is, she would say 48.2 what? And unless I could detail every patient, every single patient, and which ones had a gap and which ones had lapse, she wasn't going to be very happy. So our job is to go out and look at the amazing investments that have been made in technology and tools and services, and try to help the practices, help the bio and life sciences companies, help the insurance companies learn how to count, learn how to measure. And while that seems kind of simple, I assure you, we do all the work nationally for a great group, the American Heart Association. We're doing a project for them around AFib at a globally leading academic health center, not here in Wisconsin. That's got all the tools and all the whiz-bang stuff. Patient comes in, is diagnosed with AFib, has a heart attack, has a stroke, what have you. There is no handoff of information. There is a great rescue in the emergency department, but when we look at the data, a week out, a month out, 6 months out, that patient isn't on a regimen, hasn't had follow-up visits, isn't in a course of care with cardiology or neurology or any other allergy, and primary care was never even in the conversation if they had the event. So when you're thinking about, we've got a great device and it goes bing and it does cool stuff, you're looking at a threshold of maybe 10% of the eligible population that by chance might get on it. But there's another 90% waiting there that desperately probably need it. And connecting those dots is the work that we do at Forward Health. So thank you for coming, and I have no idea what happens next.
When you work at BioForward, you multitask. You're now stagehand. So this was great. We all heard them individually on these companies. Now let's hear them as a group and really be inspired.
You get to bring it to you.
We all need to multitask. We're small.
Okay, so for the next 30 minutes, we're going to try to dig a little deeper into everything that you heard and try to look at what are some of the drivers that led these folks to be part of the arena. They're in the arena, part of that change that Mark spoke about earlier. And then where are they going? And where is it? How is that happening in Wisconsin here? I'd like to start by first highlighting, if you look at the cross-section of work that these gentlemen do, and you put that into Mark's charts, I mean, these are the people in the arena making the changes. I think they're also out here among you, and you're going to hear more of them throughout the day. But maybe, Greg, how about if I start with you? What was the pathway that led you to do what you're doing today, and was there some kind of fire? Because you're in the risk world now. You're in the world where things can work really well or things can fail spectacularly. So what drove you there?
Well, I would say the path is definitely not straight for us, right? I think when you create companies, part of what you do is you twist and you turn and you're finding the category that you belong to. And I think that's what we've been doing over the last 6 years. If you rewind all the way to the beginning, you know, the idea really came out of research on campus here. So David, as an asthma epidemiologist, was working in the medical school and had started to do this research of what happens if you instrument medications. Can you actually change behavior using that data? And so he was doing research in this area and would produce some papers to actually prove the idea at a very small scale. And then decided to take it off campus to commercialize it.
Interesting. So, and Dale, how did you get to where you are now?
Sure, a little bit different path, for sure. So in 2009, Red Arrow started as a software development company, really focused on the user-centered design, but not in this space. We were all about the technology and driving that and partnering with people, regardless of their area of expertise or their vertical. And then we matched up and we met the Doman family. And in 2014, they brought us into the fold, and that really took us down the path of life sciences and how can we make a difference. So taking what we do in technology, in software development, and applying it to a cause, and really escalating what they do from a service-centric or patient-centric model with technology to drive that forward.
Good. Then let's look at what the road was like along the way, and maybe I'll switch to you, Michael. You have a very dynamic, interesting company. And you're certainly not averse to risk. So what were some of the challenges you had as a Wisconsin business in growing a company to date?
Well, I mean, the way we approached it, so we started the company in part because I was coming out of places like PetSmart, and my phone was ringing, and a phone call from area code 650, and I'm like, I don't know anybody in California. California, why is Apple calling me? But they were, venture capitalists, and they said, hey, we need you to start a company, and you got to suck out all that data and sell it to pharma. And I said, I don't think there's a good business model there. And so I thought there was instead a business model to, would you give a copy to my wife, and then maybe it could help pharma too, and a bunch of other things. So we set out kind of on our own in 2009, and we had we had a great laboratory. Wisconsin was this perfect place to really do the innovation. I like to say that our market and our environment is one that is unbelievably powerful at creating the innovative ideas. We just didn't do very well at executing. And that was a really hard challenge for us. So we were bootstrappers. We just kind of went on our way, and we didn't even bother to think about selling in the state, and we still really, for the most part, don't. We sell across the country. Because in our state, it was just difficult. Everybody is working on innovation. And with something as direct and straightforward as a measurement, when we would try to talk to folks, and a lot of them wanted to chat, I said, well, I think we already got that covered. Then in terms of mentorship and support and other things, that was a difficult run for us in terms of finding the lawyers and all this other kind of stuff that a young company led by a clueless entrepreneur would need. That was very hard. We had a rough go. I was very fortunate and just downright lucky to have built out a board of directors, people that came and kind of helped me figure it out. And through that guidance and advice, we were able to really kind of pick up and go.
Good. And maybe for a different perspective, I can call you Jesse. That's okay. Jesse, you started a company, we shared some origins in GE Healthcare, and you made the leap out of there on your own with an idea. Tell us what the biggest challenges have been for you in growing your company to what it is today.
Well, I was going around the world teaching and doing procedures, and you realize that it was an inefficient system in many countries and many labs. They didn't have the equipment, they didn't have the money. So after working with GE for 7 years on a different project where we integrated a CAT scan with a flow system, I thought that that's not the way to go. We should try to use the flow system alone to create a three-dimensional mapping with the existing things. It doesn't matter whether somebody uses a $100 catheter or a $4,000 catheter, they should be able to see it in 3 dimensions. So I went to a friend of mine, he's a professor of mathematics and computer sciences, and I say, I'm willing to put everything I have and work. I told my wife I may have to work extra 5 to 10 years. But let's figure it out how to find the Z. He said, it can't be done, nobody else has done it. I said, let me just go home and think about it and come back to me when you have thought about it. So 6 months later, he came to me with an equation. We don't use that, but that was the starting point. I knew a lot of people at GE. One of them was a I have worked with that guy for 1 day, but I really liked what he did in that 1 day we worked with him. And there was an image processing guy with 30 years of experience. They both retired. And I thought one of them would be in Florida, but I found them in Cedarburg. And so I had dinner with them. And these guys retired, for working 30 years. I had dinner with them. I said, listen, I want to do this, where I want to find the third dimension using 2-dimensional fluoroscopy, so we can use it in patients. And within 5 minutes, he agreed to join me. He said all his life he wanted to do something like that. But they never talked about that, luckily in GE. So that's how we started. It was a long journey. It was a lot of math, a lot of physics, a lot of things which we resolved, a lot of things which we threw out of the basket. We grew the company. We have almost 25 plus engineers from all over the world working on this. And the most difficult thing was not finding the people, because I think that every time we presented the concept to them, and we found somebody in San Francisco or Boston, we were able to find the best talent. Everybody we have talked to, they think that the most important thing we have is the best talent. one of the most important things from my standpoint, because it was part-time job for me, was raising money. And I'll be very honest, the state of Wisconsin was not very helpful. The venture capital environment in Wisconsin was not very helpful. And so there was a struggle that keeps you awake, not the engineering part, because you have to pay these guys every month, the one you have hired, essentially. So I think that there has to be a better way. I can't imagine that, and I give credit to all these people and people who have started these companies, that it is very, very difficult to have a startup technology company because there is no opening in a state like Wisconsin that people, it's not like San Francisco or Silicon Valley and things like that, that you can open up a company, get the talent and raise the money because not many people are willing to risk their money. I understand that, but at the same time, there has to be better avenues for the future innovators to do that.
So to pick up on that then, how can we improve the climate in Wisconsin? You mentioned capital, and I think the others might have other ideas to allow for more of your stories to happen, to allow for more of this. This is the incubation of all these great convergences that Mark talked about. It all starts with those very real things, like where do I get my funding, where do I get the people that you mentioned. So, Michael, maybe I'll shoot that back at you. What are some things we need to do in Wisconsin to enable more of your companies?
I think we just need to learn how to work together better. I had an episode with Greg where I was down in a meeting in Atlanta with a group called the Association of Black Cardiologists. So a group of clinicians who care a lot about the African American community. I was in Atlanta at Morehouse College, and they just started to grill me about asthma was the real problem. And I felt bad that I couldn't speak to the work that Propeller did and Greg was doing. And I was like, gosh, So, to me, it's around trying to find a way that more events like this and more groups like Bioforward can come together and allow for that sharing. I think I grew up in Minnesota. That's a bunch of Scandinavians and whatever, and they're all passive aggressive and they're nice. This is a bunch of Germans, and they don't really talk to each other. They want to. I mean, it's what my wife says about relatives. We really want to say nice things. We just don't know how to do it. And so I think it's a big challenge is that we kind of go off in our little huddles. And, I think especially, I spend a lot of time with now younger companies that have an idea they're going to fix healthcare and do a bunch of stuff. And I don't talk to them about, a bunch of people on the national scene I could connect them to. I don't get them their first contract. I'm talking to them about, you did what with your incorporation? Why did you do that? Who told you to set it up that way? Then a bunch of stuff that I'm not good at, but I'm working on lawyer stuff and structural stuff and other things, when instead I should be saying, why don't I make a phone call for you today, get you connected with some of these folks, and why don't you get your first install done? And so we've got to figure out, I think, the companies themselves and even our health systems and our health plans around here, none of us really work together great. And we need to learn how to crack that code and figure it out.
I'm more pragmatic on this topic. We need wins. I think that these companies need to hit home runs. And that's what we need. I think if you look at what happened in the Valley, or if you look at what has happened in Boston, that's not like lightning in a bottle, right? There were massive, super successful companies in the 60s where a lot of wealth was generated, and then that money got pushed right back into those environments. And we don't have enough of that. We need wins. I think that while I agree with much of what Michael has said, to some extent you kind of have to put your head down a little bit and work really, really hard, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to work super hard. And then you fail, and you get back up and you keep working hard, and then you have a home run. And you sell the business, you generate a lot of wealth for employees, for investors, for the economy, and then you plow that right back in and you start more companies. And I think that if that is what I think Wisconsin needs, is more home runs.
Good. Dale, how about you?
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what's been said on either side of me here. you know, we do need to work better together. One of the biggest challenges we have is the collaboration between academia, between pharma companies in Wisconsin or in the Midwest, between software companies. We see it in what we do naturally in the software space. Everybody collaborates, they share stuff, it's open source, it's all of that. But once you start getting into business and you start talking about, you know, how can I understand what your user base is? How can I do human-centered design if I can't get access to those folks? It makes it a challenge. And so collaboration is a huge part of what I think drives success. But I also agree with Greg. I mean, you need to keep, I'd love to see more money driven into what's going on here, the incubators that are going on, where is the money coming from, how is the wealth, rather than everybody that gets successful, at least what I've seen in my short time, is they start to go Cambridge, they start to go West Coast. It's stay here, drive it home here, and grow it from Wisconsin, and let's make a statement, and let's publicize it. And that's why I think BioForward is great, and organizations like this that get the message out there that we are doing something that's pretty impressive here in Wisconsin. We're not just a suburb of Chicago.
Yeah, so I think what I'm hearing already is, you know, Michael, I've been in Wisconsin my whole life. I certainly understand the culture you're talking about. It is people that work very hard. There's a lot of innovation going on in this area, but we don't like to talk about ourselves. We don't talk ourselves up. We don't share with one another. And certainly I think there's a little bit of the man is not a prophet in his hometown parable. You know, we're pretty good at looking at the person down the street who tried and failed twice, but now they're succeeding. And when you step back and look at it from a global, you know, when I travel anywhere outside of Wisconsin, people shake and say, wow, you have an incredible business. In Wisconsin, you're fighting for capital, or you're fighting for that recognition, or that help that to some extent, Greg, doesn't it propel you towards those bigger success stories? If you can't keep if we're not selling ourselves, can we keep the capital coming that allows us to be that big success story? So do you agree that while our inherent ecosystem here in Wisconsin is so, it's a great workforce, it's innovative, work hard, but we don't necessarily sell ourselves very well? Do you agree with that?
I don't know. You know, I don't know how to sell yourself. The only way you can sell yourself is that to show what you're doing, essentially. And you know, I had several meetings with government officials, many other people. The restrictions were so much that you could never sign a deal. There was no easy way to get investors. There were no investor summits in Wisconsin that you could go there and present your stuff. This is the first time I'm presenting actually our company to an audience like this. Most of our conversations have been about the science part of it. So I don't know. I may not know everything, you know, because of I'm not really a businessman from that standpoint. But at the same time, I didn't see too many avenues that I could really sell myself. Sell myself means selling the company in a proper way. I would never sell it like in a way that will be detrimental to the company, but to sell it in a proper way that the people appreciate what all these guys have done.
Yeah, part of what I'm saying is, you know, in Wisconsin, so many people know who Aaron Rodgers is, or Ryan Braun, but how many of them know about our companies here, that your companies? Is it part of our narrative? And I think our narrative is to just put our heads down and work, but there's still this statewide economy that helps fuel the investments and the growth in our companies. But BioForward, I think, plays a role in telling these stories. By you being up here today, I hope people realize these are the real heroes. These are the ones we should be hearing about and should be writing about. rather than maybe a football team or something.
Well, I jump on that just for a moment. I mean, we do have an enormous success here in Wisconsin in the way that, you know, kind of our ongoing progressive approach to healthcare and delivery and the like. You know, if you look at our market and the, you know, kind of the advances that our health systems and our health plans are trying to take in terms of sharing risk and moving things along, I'll dovetail in with our keynote this morning. If you go 2 hours to Chicago, it's like going back in the 60s. I mean, the place is a wasteland. They have one non-functional health plan in HCSC that can't tie its shoes in a totally crumbling Medicare program. I got to get yanked off stage. I got to go out to California, where we're advising the state Medicaid program, and we're working with many of the systems there on the largest reimbursement transformation in the country. So they're getting that from Wisconsin. They're getting that from us. So the way that the country needs to fix itself and heal itself in terms of these healthcare systems will come from these markets here. We may not do a lot of work in this state collectively, but we all learned well here. And so that this lab is important. And we got to figure out how to tap that lab and maximize that lab and make it work. I mean, I share the frustration. There wasn't an investor anywhere here that had a clue what value was or where healthcare was going or what to do with data. We just didn't work with them. That wasn't even a pathway. It wasn't even a conversation to be had. So, you know, in a lot of ways, in terms of mentorship and the like, we won't be California. And I don't know that we need a mentor or whatever, but, you know, there's a ton of good stuff going on. That thing in the paper this weekend about this old AT&T wiring building that they've renamed 316 that's just full of startup stuff right in the center. That, you know, there's good stuff happening. If we can figure out how to encapsulate that and maybe get some credit, it would be good. The hardest thing for me as an entrepreneur was going into meetings and still getting it and saying, oh, Wisconsin, we're all divided. Oh, Wisconsin, right? It doesn't help, right? It doesn't help to go to a meeting at some big center in New York and have them look at us as flyover country and then see us as this political mess. Right? I don't care which politics are, it didn't help my company one way or another. And so, you know, we need to kind of grow up and get past that and say, this is about business and we have the right thing to deliver.
I think Wisconsin does have is developing a very strong identity around healthcare IT. And by all measures, Epic is a walk-off grand slam, right? And I think so many young people coming here to work for Epic and then deciding to leave Epic but stay in Madison and create new companies is an awesome trend. And we have investors on both coasts, and they are coming to Madison to meet all of those companies. So I think that we have a brand here, at least on the healthcare IT side, we have a brand in Wisconsin that it's very, very strong technologically. Good, smart people, great technology. And so I agree. I think there are all sorts of great things that are happening here that are worth celebrating.
You can hire a developer out of Whitewater or the UW and pay them 50, 60, 70 grand, and that's 1/6 of what you'd be paying out in the valley. So, and likely harder working and better skilled. So it's a far smarter place to also build.
Good. So I think what I'm hearing is I like the term a lab. We have this great laboratory, and great things are coming out of here. And there's a great work ethic. I know when I go out and sell my company, I tell them, Wisconsin, you've got a great workforce. They own, there's an ownership in what they do. So how do we keep? But you have examples like yourselves that are in that arena, churning around this healthcare disruption that is occurring and taking the risks. How do we keep improving and growing and feeding that in Wisconsin? Any other ideas that any of you would want to share?
From my standpoint, I think one of the biggest things that I'd like to see is we hear about Madison, we hear about healthcare IT in Madison. Let's expand that through the state. I mean, Milwaukee's got a lot of great stuff going on too, but you don't hear about it. Milwaukee's the blue-collar manufacturing world. But there's a lot of innovative, there's a lot of great innovative startup minds there that are doing some things. So we got to get the word out. I don't know how you do that and have people when they're coming from the coast to look at Madison, look at Milwaukee, look at central Wisconsin. We've expanded our offices to include development talent in central Wisconsin because there's great minds all over the state. But I think, again, to me, there's a lot of publicity we have to figure out. And then it's working with academia to make sure that we have great jobs and great opportunities for those brilliant students and minds in academia to stay here and to build on it. So a lot to me is publicity. A lot to me is getting the word out, having people come and see what the whole state is about and not just what we have in a few pockets.
Agreed. And Jesse, with the capital that you mentioned, are there, every startup company has this issue, have to go out and find and raise capital, and if they're not finding it here, is there value in collaborating in work going out to other areas to look for capital? Because I found in times when I've had to look for capital outside the state, you sometimes feel very alone. Like you just got, right, who's got the number for Apple? You know, could I give them a call and how do I get in there? But if we do it collectively, do you see value in that kind of level of collaboration?
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of money out there. The question is, how do you tap into that? And a lot of, that's not my expertise. You know what I mean? But my job was to hire the engineers and create a company, and my expertise was not raising capital. So I think that maybe I should have learned about that also, when I started it. But at the same time, you don't think about that right away in my position where I was. So I think if there's an easier conduit to that, it will definitely be helpful to the future innovators, essentially. There should be some way or mechanism, okay, trying to create a company, what is the next step you do in raising capital? And I think that, by regulatory people, I just want to comment on one other thing. In San Francisco told me that the type of thing we created, it takes about $26 million to go through the FDA. We spent about $11 million. So we were pretty lean, essentially, despite the fact that we had 25 plus top-notch engineers and regulatory people and intellectual property attorneys and other attorneys, taking care of all the stuff. So I think, but that's a lot of money, still, and we took about 3.5 years by the time we got to the FDA and got the approval, but that's still a lot of money, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you can't just start a company and not have a way of generating that much money. I'm talking about a technology company, essentially. There may be other companies which can be started in $1 million or something like that. But the other thing is that I think it's okay to have a Wisconsin base, but in 2016, you don't have to have an office space in one place. It's only, I can tell you that we just got an office 3 months ago. We used to meet in Country Inn for the last 4 years, every Saturday. So you can find talent, you have to find talent wherever it is available. So there should not be a restriction that 50% of the workforce has to be in Wisconsin, for it to be a Wisconsin-based company. You could be stationed here, but you have to find talent wherever it is available. And that's the only way you will be successful in creating something unique, You can't expect to have everybody available in Wisconsin from a talent standpoint, but at the same time, there should be a way of creating a company here, helping that company out one way or the other, whether it's through private funding, whether it's through government help, or whatever, but let them go out and find people wherever the best talent is. That's the only way to do that. You don't tell Apple that you just stay in San Francisco. You go anywhere you want and find the best people from all over the world.
Maybe
if you want to create a really good technology company, that's the only way you can do that. You find talent wherever it is.
Maybe that's a relic of our manufacturing past years. We think we need the big building with everybody corralled into it. Michael, I know you have to run, so I thought I'd give you one parting words of wisdom for us here as we try to grow our companies in Wisconsin.
Well, I'm going to go find the talent I have. After we all fix healthcare, we can work on the airline industry together. I'm a big believer that our state can do this. I'm very proud to be building a company here. I want my company to always be identified with Wisconsin in this market. I think what we can do together to fix healthcare is very important. I speak, now as as a husband and a parent. Our healthcare system is really bad. It delivers really bad care at times. It's very challenging to see how families can go through that. But we all have great solutions. And so if we can figure out a way to leverage the technology, the data, the measurement, and other things, we can really be spectacular. I think that's incumbent on all of us to try to look at it from a Wisconsin-based solution. Our country's pretty divided, pretty polarized, all sorts of good stuff like that. If we can figure out a way to take a lot of things that we're doing and get those home runs and get those wins and expand it out, I think Wisconsin can make a tremendous impact on making the country a better place, quality better, cost cheaper. So, yeah.
Thank you. So, So we just have a few minutes to wrap up, and again, I just want to make sure we get some takeaways from this. What I've heard, I haven't heard anybody disparage the talent or the work ethic or this laboratory in Wisconsin as anything other than top rate, and I think we all agree on that with people. So I heard challenges in collaboration and in raising capital. So collaboration in raising capital, collaboration in helping each other out, talking to each other more, and collaboration in telling our success stories, because we do have the workforce to get there. But, for example, Epic or GE Healthcare or so many great companies are here in Wisconsin that I don't think we hear a lot about. So I think these are all challenges that we can work together on in BioForward. I think that's what we all need to do together, is create a forum for us more regularly to talk to one another, to help each other out, to maybe take our show on the road a little bit. And we used to do road shows for our products. Maybe we do road shows for our state in terms of biohealth, because as much as I've grown up in Wisconsin as a manufacturing state, with heavy manufacturing, what really brought it to light for me is someone I heard talk who made door handles go to the International Auto Show and find the next models, and you didn't need door handles anymore. You just touched the car and it opened. And so they look at it and go, well, what happens to me? My door handles are gone. I don't think we have that problem in health. Mark outlined the great opportunities and challenges we have going forward. So I think we can collectively help each other in these type of forums to collaborate more. So any other final thoughts from anyone?
I would just say I agree. I mean, collaboration, we've got a great opportunity here. Let's collaborate, let's get the message out and hit some of those home runs. Thank you very much.
I want to highlight some of the great stuff that's happening here, and I recognize that I'm somewhat blessed, but I moved here for grad school in 2000, and in the last 13 years have either started or been a part of 3 startups. All 3 of those startups had seed funding from Wisconsin investors. Never had a problem finding talent in Wisconsin to drive those businesses and ultimately have some success. And I think there are some, and granted this is in Madison, there's some really important stuff that's happening in Wisconsin and probably in Madison that is worth highlighting, right? I think what Lisa does here at BioForward is important. I think the work that like Forrest Woolworth and Matt Yonkel are doing with Forward Fest that happens every August, really an important event. And those are the kinds of sort of, not just organizations, but events that gets all of us together and start talking about that. And I think it would be nice to think about, like, can you find a way to federate that a little bit so that you actually do that all over the state? So I did not grow up in Wisconsin. I am a fanboy of Wisconsin, and I think over the last 13 years I have been blessed with a really strong, great experience for starting and building companies. And so I have a very optimistic view that it's it's only getting better, and that's primarily based on how it's evolved over the last 16 years.
Jesse, final word?
I'm going to go off the topic a little bit. I've taught and I have worked all over the world, India, Europe, England, US, Canada. If you get sick, the best country to get sick is United States. So the healthcare is not broken in this country. So if you want a treatment for, my brother had a problem in Canada, I had to pull all my strings, get him at Princess Margaret Hospital, talk to the doctor on Sunday. He would have died if I was not a physician. But if you are a patient in the US, you wouldn't have to do anything. You can go to any hospital and you would have gotten the same treatment within 24 hours near you. So the healthcare in this country is not broken. I would totally disagree with that. But I will put a challenge to all of you guys. I'm sure there are a lot of talented people. When I was working in England, there were 3 administrators in a hospital where I worked which served 250,000 patients. Today, we have 3 administrators to 1 physician in our hospital. So I think the challenge to one of you is, can you reverse that ratio going forward? So that will be a disruptive thing, that you need more physicians and more nurses taking care of the patients. And that will be a disruptive technology if you can figure that out. And hopefully somebody will do that during my lifetime.
Good. Good. Well, then with that, I guess I'll leave you with final thought. Again, I said this earlier, but I really believe this. These are the real heroes in our state. They're the ones that we should be reading about. They're the ones that we need to spread the word about, more so than our football teams or politicians, maybe. Is the innovators. They're the ones in the arena fighting to bring that world. They all have, in their own way, that vision of that better world that Mark talked about earlier, the integrated health systems world. And we're right there. I think it was well said by Greg. We have something great here. You heard Michael also say, call us this lab. This is a great place to be and a great place to work. Plus, it doesn't cost $1 million for a condo or something in Milwaukee. It's a much better standard of living than some of the coast. So I'd like to ask for a round of applause for our panelists.